Marine, so I'm going to do what he says. I don't even know this guy, and that was on the balcony. I'm not sure if I was supposed to hear that or, if I just accidentally heard that. But I continued to hear the high pitched sound, and it seemed like it was coming from up above me, in those younger neighbors' apartment. Um, and what I was thinking in my head is, okay, and this is about two, no, I had a break when I went to when I went to the new condo. It stopped for a while, so the high pitched sound stopped. I hadn't experienced V2K yet, um, but in getting this all, it's such a long period of time, so it gets convoluted in the mind of how it all played out, especially over such a long period of time. But I heard the high pitched sound after a couple of months of living there, probably about 3 months, hearing the high pitched sound, thinking that the people from the other place in the apartment had moved equipment and asked these younger guys to participate. So about 2 to 3 months of experience at high pitched sound, trying to go to extended stays, trying to kind of plan my way out of that apartment complex. I thought that, and this was kind of in that 2 months, and really escalated at about 2 months. I started to think that I could hear the neighbors above me talking. I just thought that I heard their voices through the floor. Two younger gentlemen and a girlfriend of one of them that lived there. I didn't think anything of it. When I'd go to extended stays, I would think that I would hear the people above me, and I would still hear the high pitched tinnitus sound. And I would like look out the window, and there would be like black cars, kind of at the extended stays. So I was being followed at that time, whenever I would try and get out of there. Um, so then, how I learned, and I was experiencing the tinnitus sound all through this time. In that condo throughout about a year, my grandfather went into the hospital, and I would go to take care of him and sit with him all night, and I would hear that tinnitus sound all night long. Not and not if I did hear V2K, I wasn't realizing it. I wasn't putting things together, but I don't remember hearing any V2K. About a year into staying in that different place in the apartment, um, I went to Walgreens one day, still hearing the tinnitus sound wherever I went. It was wherever I went, but the thing was, if I went to an extended stay or I went to stay with my parents, I would hear that tinnitus sound, the high pitched sound, and it would dwindle out. So what I thought was happening is that they were hitting me with equipment from above me, and then it was causing damage to my ears, and I was healing from this. I was healing from it when I would go out, which now I look back and I know that they were playing around. My attackers were doing the high pitched sound. I think they kind of with remote neural monitoring, they knew what I thought. They knew that I thought that maybe my ears had been damaged, so they would do the high pitched sound, and then it would, go away, so that I thought it was my ears that were damaged. Um, One day, it was probably about 8 months into staying in that apartment. I was in a Walgreens, and when I was in the Walgreens shopping, I was like kind of close to the doors where you come in and out of, and I thought I could hear my neighbors above me. So it was that same sound that I'd heard in extended stays. I'd heard at my place. It was like two guys and a girl, and I could hear them above me. Like, it wasn't in my head. It was above me in a Walgreens. So at that point, I said, "Oh my God, they've got some kind of, like, that ex-Marine was maybe a communications person in the Marines, and he had equipment, and this is like a personal vendetta against me." Still not having discovered, the all the targeted individuals out there, and that this was happening to a lot of people. Um, so they actually, the people above me ended up moving They ended up moving out abruptly and not paying their bills or anything like that, and moving away. And they did that, and I stayed. I had to finish out my lease there for another couple of months, probably about 3 months. But in that time, I was still hearing the high pitched sound. I was not hearing the V2K anymore, though. The V2K did go away. I thought it was because, they were doing the V2K down, or they were doing the V2K, wherever I was at. But they left. I was still hearing the high pitched sound wherever I would go. I still hadn't added things up in my mind. I was still confused about what was happening. I thought maybe somebody next to me or above the person next to me had shuffled the equipment to them, and they were participating in it. Needless to say, I moved away from there. My mom helped me to get a house. So I moved into the house the first night. I mean, I moved to that house to get away from it. I thought it was in that area of that apartments, and they were passing around equipment kind of on the ground, and I was very confused about how anything worked. But the first night in the house, I received horrible V2K. I mean, horrible tinnitus sound, that high pitched ringing sound. With no V2K. Like, I couldn't hear any V2K or anything like that. About 3 months into, and that, when I experienced that in the house the first night, I still thought it was my ears that were damaged, and that I had gotten away from the equipment, and my ears were healing. So for 3 months, no V2K. The V2K had gone away, had gone out. To where I didn't hear anything like that. But for 3 months, when I'd play my computer, I'd hear a tinny sound, and just there was a high pitched sound in my ears going in and out, and I really just thought, okay, my ears are healing up. My ears got very damaged from the attacks in the apartment. But one day, it was so loud. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to move to the other side of the house. So I was on the side of the house next to, kind of an older couple, and they had 2 kids. Moved to the other side of the house, and then when I moved to the other side of the house, I started hearing V2K, and it seemed as if it was coming from that side, from the other side of the house, and the high-pitched sound was just devastating to where I knew somebody's pointing something at me. This isn't my ears healing up. So then when I knew that I was being attacked at the house, I knew that I was being attacked. Then I started hearing V2K, which sounded like the man and woman who were next to me on the other side, and just a horrible V2K. And then I started experiencing body hits, just like burning of my chest and my head and things like that while I was in the house. I lived in that house for about 5 years, from about 2000, must have been 2012 to 2016. Yeah, about 2012, so about 4 years. And that's when everything really ramped up, where I knew that people were coming in and out at the same time. I actually saw a ground weapon in my neighbor's window he was an ex-Army. He had a wife and children. I saw a ground weapon, and was hit all the time. So I thought that they had moved this equipment and given it to this guy, and he was kind of the leader, and they were hitting me on all sides of the houses. Still, I knew there was some kind of remote aspect to it because I was being hit in my car. I was being hit in other places where I went, but I thought that all the equipment was in like his house, or some of it was maybe in the house, on the other side of me, which had some Mexican gentlemen in it. And I kind of report all this of where I'm thinking it's coming from, on videos that I started to make. Before I started making the videos, though, the way that I figured out that this was an actual program, or this was happening to a lot of people, is one night, it was just so bad, and I tried to get away from an extended stays, go to stay at my parents' house. It just wouldn't stop anywhere. And so one night, I got on the internet and I put in, high pitch sounds, high pitch frequencies. And I ended up pulling up stuff about the Navy, stuff about EMF. So then I hit something about electromagnetic frequencies. So then I put in like high pitch electromagnetic frequencies, which pulled up a video of, at the time I didn't know who it was, but it was Timothy Trespass. So I clicked on that video, and he's like, "This is what I hear all day long," and it was this high pitched ringing sound. So then I started watching, YouTube videos of other targeted individuals who were saying that this was happening to them. At that point, I knew that it was like, a bigger thing, that people were hitting other people with this equipment, and I knew there was a remote aspect to it. So in the next 4 years of staying at that house, needless to say, it was just severe torture and trauma. I thought that the ex-Army guy, was staying home 24 hours a day. His truck would leave, but I thought that, he was just parking it somewhere and then coming back and doing it 24 hours a day. At the time that I'm in now, like right now, I realized that the remote attacks, the V2K, and I was hearing him and his wife arguing all the time. It was like, she was like, "I don't want to do this anymore," and his V2K was like, "We've got to do this. We've got to get him out of there." It was a narrative of those two, talking. At first, I thought that I could just hear their voices from their house, but that's ridiculous. You can't really do that. But all sorts of things go through your mind when this is happening to you. You don't automatically say, "Okay, well, I'm being hit with V2K." You try and come up with things that, with normal things that it could be. But needless to say, in the next 4 years, it was just V2K all the time, where they would introduce a voice. They had the two people, the wife and the husband talking, and they may have gotten their voices from their phone calls. These people may have offered up the remote attackers, whoever was on my contract. They may have given them their voices, and then done some of the stuff, like put toxins around my house, had some ground weapons they hit me with occasionally, but I don't think that anybody around me was hitting me 24 hours a day. I think the 24 hours a day attacks were coming from a remote location that had contracted out to me by that time. But they would, in this narrative of V2K, they would add, like they added a kind of a woman's voice that was a little more deep, and it sounded like, I kind of matched it up with the neighbor who lived by, the ex-Army guy and his wife. So they were trying to add in people and do voices, so I would think that it was people around me, so that I would think it was my neighbors. Now, I don't know. I don't know if the neighbors maybe had some ground V2K. I know that they definitely had ground weapons that they were putting in to the whole attack thing, but they themselves were not doing 24-hour-a-day attacks. The 24-hour-a-day attacks were remote, were like either from satellites or cell phone towers, which now I'm pretty sure is kind of routed like a cell phone signal to a human being. Route it from like a satellite to then a cell phone tower in the area, and then to the targeted individual. And so I called police out, thinking that it was my neighbor doing everything, doing all of it. Did not know how it worked at all, but I called the police out many times, sheriffs and city police. There was one incident, and I have a lot of this documented on my videos. This is kind of just a general, like, kind of how it all went down. I know it's not very detailed, but like one Sunday morning, I went out and I was making a video, and I'm kind of hopping around a little bit, but one Sunday morning, I walked outside and I was like making a video. and neighbors around me, you know, they were all doing like very weird stuff. Like people would drive